Hey guys, Sean from Bantam Overland. Today we have another exciting installation video for you featuring Soundskins. Now this is specifically for the 18.5 to 23 Jeep JL. We also carry it for the Jeep Gladiator as well. Now they are two separate kits. We have a interior kit. So this will do all your floorboards and all four doors of your Jeep JL. And then we have the rear trunk and wheel well kit as well. That'll do everything in the back of your Jeep JL. So let's start by going over the interior kit. So that's a 13-piece kit. It'll cover your floor, all four doors, everything to quiet down the interior of your Jeep. Now moving over to the rear kit, this is a 5-piece kit. This will cover the back of your Jeep JL as well as the wheel wells. Now, one of the advantages of having it on the wheel wells is that it actually will knock down some of that road noise from larger tires when you're cruising at highway speeds. It'll also stop some of that metal from vibrating if you have an aftermarket subwoofer or stereo system in your Jeep JL. So in this video, we're actually going to show you how to install both kits. I'm actually going to start with the rear kit. I'm going to do a full disassembly and installation. If you're only buying the interior kit, you're going to want to go ahead and jump ahead in the video now. We're going to go over some of the tools that we need to disassemble the back portion of our Jeep and get everything prepped and ready to install our pre-cut Soundskins kit. So as far as tools, now this again is specifically for the rear of the Jeep. So the tools we're going to need are a screw gun or handheld screwdriver, an electric or manual socket, a T40 Torx, a T25 Torx, a 10mm socket, a variety of panel removal tools. We're going to need a Soundskins roller, and now that is to roll to make sure we get good adhesion on the Soundskins itself. And then some optional tools would be a pair of scissors and a razor knife. So those are the tools we're going to need to actually disassemble, install, and reassemble everything in the back of our Jeep. Now ours is a 21. Yours may have something a little bit different. There could be a different size bolt or nut or screwdriver that is needed, so double check all of that before you begin your installation. So with that being said, let's go ahead, unbox our rear kit, see everything that's involved in the rear kit and what's included. So included is a installation sheet with pictures, kind of show you everything you're gonna need. Then we have all of our different cut sheets. Everything has been already labeled so you know where to put it. So this is the bottom left floor piece. Here's our bottom right floor piece. And then we have our main piece here. So one thing you'll notice is some perforated holes, and the pre-cut is already done for you. The biggest thing you're going to have to remember to do before the installation is you're actually going to do a little prep, pop out each one of these holes. So these holes are there for some factory bolts or things that you may need to get at after the installation. So you'll actually pop out all of these as well as remove all of the excess here. Now the nice thing is you can use those extra pieces in other places on the Jeep, whether you want to put extra stuff on the wheel wells or in the bottom, wherever you want to do it. It's there, you have it, you should use it. Easiest thing I found is just kind of support it from the back, push down on each hole, and then just do that for every one of them. The holes should come out relatively easily. So just double check, looks like I got all of my holes. So now we can move over to this side here, and you can just kind of pull it away, just going gently. Again, if you feel more comfortable using a razor knife or a pair of scissors to kind of get this off, you can go ahead and do that. So there's a chunk we can use. Go ahead and pull the rest of this off. Another nice chunk we can use. Get this side all done. There we go. And then I'll flip it around. And then go ahead and pull off this excess on the bottom. There we go. So now we have our main floor all ready to go. Everything's removed. Now, one other thing you'll notice is that there's a little cut here. You don't want to rip it off. It just needs to be separated because that will actually go like that and just be free from the rest of this. But now our main part of our floor is done. We can set that aside. Go ahead and do the rest of the kit, popping out all of the little perforated holes, get everything all prepped. Once that's all done, we can actually jump to the back of the vehicle and begin the disassembly, and we're going to do that now. So let's begin the disassembly of the rear section of our Jeep. We're gonna actually be taking most of this stuff out, removing all of our bottom panels. So let's get right into it. First thing I'm gonna do, and just to make things a little easier, fold down the seats and remove this top panel. So we'll get the seats down. There we go. I have all my tools out and ready, so we'll kind of just get these out of the way for now. Slide out our cover plate by pulling straight back. So now we got our bottom cover off. We'll go ahead and get our bolt holder out of the way. So just be careful if you have your bolts in there like we do. Just be careful not to knock them all over the place. So next we want to remove each one of these sides. They're held in by the tie downs with a T40 Torx underneath. So for that, grab our panel popper and just pop each one of them up, just gently. And then grab our T40 and remove each one. So now that all three of those are removed, we can just lift this up and out of the way. Do the exact same thing to the other side. Now we can get this out of the way. So once we get both side panels out of the way, we can actually start removing the plastic trim from the side of the vehicle. I find it easiest just to kind of remove the rubber gasket first, grabbing your panel removal tool on top where the seat belt is. Just kind of pop that up and pop it out of its holder. There we go. Now take that same panel removal tool and just kind of gently get it back in behind, releasing the plastic clips. The one down at the bottom, you actually come up. And release that. And then you'll just kind of keep going along, getting all the clips to release. Pop that out of the way. And just keep releasing all of the clips until it pops all the way off. We'll have our power outlet to unplug. So right here, just push in and release, and then set that to the side. So now we can actually just start removing the rest of the trim pieces and pop out our carpet, which will just slide out. So as you can see, this side is now completely apart. Now you can see there's a bit of a mess. This is where your vacuum would come in, but we're actually going to go ahead, switch over to the other side, get this side all apart, and I'll show you how to do that. So same basic concept. We're going to go ahead and get all of the trim removed and popped off. There we go. So same thing, the bottom here, that will pop up. And then we'll just release the tabs holding this plastic on. We still have to remove this, and there is one T25 Torx at the front side of this. Now we have the factory amplified system with the subwoofer. So yours may be a little different. If you have bass audio, you'll have something very similar to the other side, so it'll remove exactly the same. So we'll get that out. We'll go ahead and get our T25 out here. So that is right inside this little cubby here. So just one small little screw. So now we can continue getting out this panel. And it does basically just pop straight out. So we can remove that. Now if you have the factory sub, you'll be unplugging it. So once you unplug your factory sub, you can just take and remove that panel. And then just like the other side, we're just going to go ahead and remove the carpeted piece to reveal everything that's here. Then we can also go ahead and pop this out and remove that. So now we want to kind of prep our surface for the actual Soundskins material to adhere to. So if it's super dirty, or if you have crumbs or dirt anywhere like that, you're going to want to vacuum it out, clean it off. Otherwise, just wipe it down, use some sort of degreaser or spray to kind of clean it off. In this case, it's relatively clean. Just go ahead and hit it with some cleaner and get it wiped down. And since it's apart, might as well take the time, clean it anyway. Just want to make sure that anywhere that the material is going to go is going to be clean, free of any kind of oil or grease, anything like that. So there we go. relatively clean now. So now that all of our panels and everything are out, we have one more thing that we have to do. We actually have to remove the rear seat. Our kit actually goes underneath where those bolts are. Now, if you're only doing the rear kit, you still have to do this. If you're doing both the rear kit as well as the front kit, it's actually a good thing because you're going to just be removing that seat anyway to install the interior kit. So let's go ahead and start removing the bolts for the rear seat. It does help to have a second person with you when you're actually removing the seat. So let's go ahead. It's a 18 millimeter to get the bolts out of the entire seat. There's 3 in the back here and then 4 underneath the seat up front. So let's go ahead and get those out. So I got my bolts for the back. We'll just keep them in that pocket. Now we'll go ahead, flip the seats back up, go ahead, get under there. So let's go ahead, go to the driver's side first, get those 2 bolts out, then we'll move to the passenger side, get those 2 bolts out. Let's do that. All right, now moving over to the passenger side, same process. So now we have our 4 bolts holding the legs down to the seat. So now there's 4 more holding the actual seat in. You have to take out these 4 to get at those last 4. So the easiest thing to do, just lift up the seat, get it out of your way. You'll see the 2 bolts on the driver's side here. So let's get those out. So there's 1. So on this one, it's a little tight. You may need to grab an extension depending on what kind of socket wrench you're using. So now we got those 2 out. Now we can move over to the passenger side and remove those 2 bolts. So now same thing on the passenger side, just lift up on the bottom. Remove the bolt out of the seat belt. And remove the bolt out of the seat. So now you should be able to lift up the seat and get it out. So now everything, all the bolts are off. I moved it forward to make it easier. I'm actually going to remove it in its entirety. And then that way, since I'm going to be doing the interior kit as well, it's already out of my way. So now that everything's out of our way, we can go ahead and grab our full Soundskins kit, kind of get it placed, get familiar with where every piece goes. So let's go ahead and grab that. So I have my full kit here. Let's go ahead and slide that stuff down. We're going to start with the main body of the floor. So with that, you're going to just pop off some of this carpet here. There we go. Slide it into position. Now all the holes should line up relatively perfectly. So you can see this lines up. This goes right here, wraps around, So we're good there. So I have my number 5, my bottom right-hand floor piece. So let's get familiar with that. So that's going to sit just like that. And then we have our number 4, bottom left-hand piece. Same kind of positioning, just like that. Okay, so now we have this piece here. This is for the left wheel well. So let's just get familiar with that. We'll go this way. And then the last piece. There you go, like that. So now that I have a basic idea of how everything goes, I kind of know if there's anything I need to pop off, like I'm going to need to pop out this retaining clip here for on this side. Doesn't look like there's anything else here. On this side, looks like the only thing that's kind of in the way is my ground bolt. So I'll remove that when I place this side on. So from there, we can go ahead and start adhering the material to our Jeep. I'm going to start with the main floor piece and the 2 side pieces, and then move on to the wheel well pieces. So go ahead and get this stuff out of the way. So we'll set this stuff aside. So for this portion, I'm going to want to grab my Soundskins roller. Can set that down. Now we can actually take this out, flip it around, and we're going to want to just start with removing some of the material cover. So just kind of get the bottom of it removed, you know, the first 6 or 8 inches. Again, if you have somebody to help you, that helps immensely. So just get some of this removed here. And then get the far side here. So now we can actually take this main floor piece. And again, if you had 2 people, makes it a lot easier. But we'll go ahead and get this situated inside the truck. Making sure that all of your holes are good. You want to be, for the most part, you want to be in the middle of the holes. So we can go ahead and kind of get this front piece pressed down. Okay, so now we have that front part pressed down. You can actually kind of fold it back, start removing the rest of the material. Now we have our sheet off. We can just gently kind of get it into position here. Again, making sure everything sits where it's supposed to with the factory bolt holes. So now coming over to the other side, just make sure everything's lined up. Kind of get everything into position and press down. So now it's all in. Now we grab our roller and we just kind of just make sure everything's pressed down. Making sure we get both sides. There we go. So now that's basically done. I may go over it again once everything's in, just to make sure it's a final press before we begin reassembling the vehicle. So now we have our two bottom side pieces. That's number 4 for the left, number 5 for the right. So let's go ahead and get these installed. Again, they just sit in here like this, and you'll press it up under. So go ahead and remove the protective film or the protective backing, and just kind of get it set in to the best of your ability. And then just work it towards the top here. And then once you're in, get it all pressed in like that. Then we'll just roll over it just to make sure. Switch over to the right-hand side. It's the exact same thing. Just get it placed. And then just work it in. There we go, get it placed. And then work it in from the bottom up, and then grab your roller and just roll it. So then those are the two side pieces. Next, we're going to go ahead, grab the right hand side wheel well kit. Again, we're going to have to remove 2 pins that are holding wires on. So we're going to need our panel removal tool. Pop both of those off, and then we can kind of get it set in, see where it goes. So I have my right hand side here. Get it set in. Go ahead and grab my tool. Get both of these popped out, just kind of out of the way. We'll actually go ahead and remove this one as well, and this one here. There we go. We'll just kind of lift it up out of the way for now. Get some of this paper off here. So there we go. We can kind of get it lined up to where it's going to be. About there. Just gently make sure we're following the contours. Get that all lined up. We have that pin. So there we go. Now sliding back, you can just keep pulling off some more of that protective paper. And just making sure as you're attaching it, you have all your holes. Get all that stuff down. Now, the nice thing is they have a little cut here, so that's where you're going to fold it over the wheel well. Kind of get that all worked in. And then go ahead and finish removing the rest of the material on the paper. So here, put a little that in, get that underneath there. Everything is basically down. We'll run over it with the roller. And now just get this front edge all nice and rolled out. So there we go. We can go ahead and get our pins put back in. And that one. So now that's all back together. We can actually go ahead, move on to the driver's side, get that one all done. Now on the driver's side, we're gonna just really need to remove this 10 millimeter ground here. So I have my 10 millimeter. I'll grab my screw gun, we'll pop that off, and we'll go ahead and do that now. So now I have my other piece of material. Just line it up, make sure I'm the right way. Have my 10 millimeter, go ahead and just undo that. Kind of get that ground out of the way. I'm just going to put that bolt back on so I don't lose it. Again, just confirming. And then again, just starting from the back, removing the materials. So there we go. Start with getting that into position. There we go, getting that kind of adhered for a start. Taking some more of the paper off. There we go. So now moving, getting the rest of it off. Just kind of lining it up before we stick it all the way down. So now everything's down, we can go ahead and grab our roller, kind of get everything rolled out. And then getting this part nice and flat. So now let's not forget to put our ground back on. So go ahead and reattach that and bolt it back in. So that's back on. I have my power outlet plug here. Everything's on. So now we have all of our Soundskins down. We can actually go ahead and reassemble. If you're only doing the back half kit, you can actually put your rear seat in along with everything. I'm going to be continuing on and doing the full interior kit, so I am not going to be putting the rear seat in now, but I will go ahead and get all my side panels and everything put back together there. So I'm going to start on the driver's side. We're going to go ahead and get the carpet and all the trim pieces ready, so let's do that. So I've got all of my trim pieces here. I've got my carpet, so we can go ahead and get our carpet placed in. Get it slid underneath all the panels here and get it locked in. So we'll just go up front here. Go ahead and get everything here. Okay, there we go. So the next we'll grab our top piece that goes back in behind. Get that lined up and locked in. And then it's time for our big trim piece. Again, just pulling the rubber off, making sure everything that should go in goes in. We've got to make sure we plug in our power outlet. There we go. Slide everything in, kind of get it lined up, and then you can start pushing everything together. So now everything is together. Last thing we're going to do, get our seatbelt cover locked in, and we're done with our side. Now we can move over to our passenger side. Again, if you have the factory subwoofer, it's going to be a little bigger. If you do not have bass audio, it's going to look just like this other side, just for that side. So let's grab that stuff. So a subwoofer enclosure, my top piece, and my carpet. So we'll start out getting the carpet in here. That in, get it behind all the panels. Now I'm going to leave the bottom half slightly loose just because I need to continue to work in that back seat area. Get it all down. There we go. Now I can grab my top panel, just slip it in behind here, line it up, push it down, lock it in, and grab my subwoofer enclosure, get that lined up in here. And just maneuver it into position. There we go, just double check back here. Good deal. So now that's all back in. Get our seatbelt cover back in. Now I have the one T25 screw to put back in this back corner if you have the factory subwoofer. So let's get that in. So back in this back corner. There we go. Nice and tight. So now we'll grab each of our sides here with our tie downs. Just place them where they need to go. And put our tie downs in. So kind of start these by hand. Grab our T40, go ahead and tighten those down. And then close the covers on them. There we go. Now we can do the other side. And go ahead and get those tightened down. Once that's all done, we can grab our trim piece for here. Let's make sure that all of our weather protector is on correctly. Just making sure it's all the way against, the whole way down. There we go. Now we can get in our trim piece for here. So that's all done. Just make sure, since our top's off, we have it all. We have our wiper and our washer fluid plug. Get that back in. Just go over everything as you're doing this just to make sure everything's good. You're not going to get any extra rattles. Throw in our light. There we go. So last but not least is our cargo cover. That will just go in and then slide underneath the plastic and just line it up. So again, it does look a little weird that there's no seat in there. Again, if you're only doing this part, you'll have your seat in. So from there, if you're only doing the back portion of the Soundskins kit, you're done. Good job. Take it out for a spin. Listen to the difference in the Jeep when you're driving it. Less road noise, quieter cabin, especially if you have your top on, and just an overall better sounding Jeep. So now that we've completed the rear half of our Jeep JL, it's time to go ahead and do the big 13-piece for the interior of our Jeep. So first, let's go over some of the tools we're going to need. So first, we're going to need some type of screw gun, whether it's a battery operated or a handheld, a socket, whether electric or manual, a T40, T45, as well as an 18mm socket to get out the rear seat bolts. We'll also need a 10mm socket, a variety of panel removal tools. We're going to need our Soundskins roller. So that's to ensure proper adhesion of the Soundskins to the bottom of the truck, as well as, these are all optional, but a pair of scissors and a razor knife. Now, one thing I don't show here is we're going to need some sort of rag and cleaning material for underneath in case you've spilled coffee, soda, anything like that. You may also want to have a vacuum handy to vacuum out any kind of food particles or crumbs or dirt or dust, anything like that. With that being said, let's go ahead and actually open the kit, show you everything that's in there. Cool thing is, everything's labeled, it comes with instructions. So once you watch this video, you can always refer to the instructions right inside the box. So let's go ahead, flip her over, get her opened up. Now we have our installation. Nice thing is it shows you everything of where the numbers are and where they go. I'll also go over all that in the video today. So we can set that aside. So everything is in here. Lots of pretty big pieces. So first of all, I see that this is number 13. This is the rear floor panel. So this will be underneath the rear seat all the way up to around the back of the front seats. We have a number of perforated holes to remove, but it doesn't look all that bad. About 6 or 7 of them. Pretty easy. So we'll fold that up, just set that aside. Continuing through, we have our passenger middle floor panel and our driver's middle floor panel. 10 and 12. So from there, passenger floor panel, so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go through every one of them, but this is a full and complete kit. Just like with any Soundskins, there's always going to be a little prep. You're going to have some extra material once you get your pre-cut piece removed. You can absolutely put that wherever you want to. Just use your razor knife or your scissors, cut it how you need it, and put it wherever the kit doesn't cover. So let's just go ahead. I'm going to put all this back. I'm going to show you how to prep the large rear panel where there's some things to remove. Ones like this, you're just removing the outside and nothing in the middle here. So let's get that. So we have our big rear piece sitting here. Show you how to prep this one. Same thing goes for basically all of them. If you have any of the perforated holes, just go ahead, push them through, set the little holes aside. So starting over here, just press down through. It's the way I like doing it, but you can do it any way you choose. So there we go. I believe I got all the holes out. Yep. So next we're going to actually just take off any of the excess to make the kit. So just go ahead and start removing the sides. There's a little piece up top. So then just we can continue on the bottom. So there's a little piece up top to pop out. One there, one right there. And then we can actually remove this whole piece in the middle. Goes. So set this aside. We could always use something like this for other areas. And then this is what our main floor will look like once it's all prepped. And again, we'll just do that for the entire kit. So say on this passenger middle, we'll pop out a couple holes here and then just remove this excess. So let's go ahead and just kind of get that done now. So everything's prepped, then we'll hop in the Jeep and start disassembly. So now it's time to start on the 13-piece interior package of our Soundskins kit. Now this will involve removing both the front seats as well as the back seat. Now if you're only installing this kit, we already have our back seat removed. I'll put in that portion of that video here now. So let's go ahead and start removing the bolts for the rear seat. It does help to have a second person with you when you're actually removing the seat. So let's go ahead. It's a 18 millimeter to get the bolts out of the entire seat. There's 3 in the back here and then 4 underneath the seat up front. So let's go ahead and get those out. So I got my bolts for the back. We'll just keep them in that pocket. Now we'll go ahead, flip the seats back up, go ahead, get under there. So let's go ahead, go to the driver's side first, get those 2 bolts out, then we'll move to the passenger side, get those 2 bolts out. Let's do that. All right, now moving over to the passenger side, same process. So now we have our 4 bolts holding the legs down to the seat. So now there's 4 more holding the actual seat in. You have to take out these 4 to get at those last 4. So the easiest thing to do, just lift up the seat, get it out of your way. You'll see the 2 bolts on the driver's side here. So let's get those out. So there's 1. So on this one, it's a little tight. You may need to grab an extension depending on what kind of socket wrench you're using. So now we got those 2 out. Now we can move over to the passenger side and remove those 2 bolts. So now same thing on the passenger side, just lift up on the bottom. Remove the bolt out of the seat belt. And remove the bolt out of the seat. So now you should be able to lift up the seat and get it out. So now everything, all the bolts are off. I moved it forward to make it easier. I'm actually going to remove it in its entirety. And then that way, since I'm going to be doing the interior kit as well, it's already out of my way. So now that you have your rear seat removed, we can go ahead and move to the front seats. Now that's relatively simple to do. You're going to need a T45 Torx. Some of the Jeeps, depending on the year and make, will have a 18mm bolt holding that seat in. But let's go ahead and get these removed. So personally, I like to always remove the headrests from the seats prior to removing them, and just set it on that seat there. Now there's 2 T45s in the front and then 2 in the rear. So we'll go ahead, get those out, and then I'll show you how to unplug all of the components on the bottom of the seat. So let's go ahead and get these front bolts out. And now we can move to the rear. So now we have 2 in the rear. So now our seat's completely off. We'll lean it back and get the plugs unplugged. So now we have some pins to remove. So grab your panel popper behind there, wiggle that one out. You'll want to remove this by just pushing in this tab as you're pulling it back. And then this one, slide this red tab back and pull it through. Now you'll have to go under the seat and just kind of let that lay there, and then go ahead and just carefully take your seat out of your Jeep. So now my seat's out. I'm going to go over to the passenger side. Exact same process to remove that seat. Get the headrest off, take out the 4 T45s, unplug the harness, pull the seat out. So let's get that done. Go ahead and get these bolts out. Slide your seat forward. Now remove the 2 in the rear. There we go. And now we'll get the seat unplugged and I'll remove the headrest. So same process, lean the seat back. Make sure we unplug our airbag as well as our connector. There we go. Get that slid back on. There we go. And just go ahead and carefully remove your seat. So now both our seats are out, our rear seat's out. All we have left is the carpet. The carpets are relatively easy to get out. There's a bunch of the little push holders that kind of hold everything in. Easiest thing to do, just pull up on them and you can slide it out from underneath the lower trims and as well as the center console. So we'll kind of fold that over there. Same thing on the front. You can just kind of get it out from under everything. Remove the pop clip from the front and just kind of pull it out. So we have our entire passenger side done. Now here's where the dirty part starts. You know, depending on your Jeep, great time to vacuum, get everything all cleaned up. I'm gonna have to do a fair amount of vacuuming and wiping down to prepare the actual surface for the Soundskins kit. But before I do that, let me go ahead and get the rest of the carpet out of the Jeep, and then we'll start vacuuming. So now go ahead and do the same thing on the driver's side. And we pull the whole carpet out and then move up to the driver's front where all the French fries are. Pull that out. There we go. Now we have both sides out. So now I'm going to take a little bit of time, get it vacuumed out, and then I'll come back. We'll wipe it down together and we'll start actually installing the floor portion of the Soundskins kit. So before we start wiping everything down, we need to do one last thing. We need to remove the kick panels, both front and rear. Now you don't need to remove them completely, but especially this rear one, just need to pop it out enough that we can make sure we can A, clean under it, and B, adhere any of the Soundskins that may go underneath. So easiest thing to do, pop off your cover plate. You can see it is relatively loose. You're just gonna, grab it, and you may need a panel popper tool. Get in there. And then start popping it out like that. And this whole thing from here down will all pop off. We'll then have to pop out this little guy here and then continue on popping it on the front side. And then while you're here, you can go ahead and start releasing the tabs to the front seat. Now just remember, there is a 10mm bolt that holds in that front side. But once you get that all off, you can kind of slide this up and out of the way. Then we can go ahead and grab our 10mm, pop out here. Now that 10mm is right here. So right here, we're going to go ahead and remove that bolt. So here we go. Just looks like that. Put that in our cup holder. Now, just get the door, unhook it, and then we'll actually have to unhook the actual harness for it. and then we just kind of slide it off and out. There we go. And then that will come out. So now that that's all completely out, we can go to the driver's side, do the exact same thing for the driver's side. So let's get that done. So now moving over to the driver's side, again, exact same process. Start pulling these panels out. We'll pop this panel. So now everything's loose. And start pulling our front panels out. And this one out. Then go ahead and release that. Remove the 10mm up and top. And just put that in the cup holder. Go ahead and release your harness for your door. And then remove the rest of the kick panel. And then remove your panel. So now our seats, our carpet, as well as our kick panels are all out of the Jeep. Took a little bit of time and vacuumed it a little bit, but I still need to wipe it down. So we're gonna wanna wipe it down with some kind of degreaser or cleaner just to kind of get any grease or oil off the bottom of the Jeep. So we'll go ahead and just spray it down. Just do one side at a time. And it just depends on how dirty yours is. You may not need to do this at all. You may just need to wipe it down with a rag. But this one seems to be a little bit dirty. Now we'll go to the other side. Everything's clean, it's ready to go. I'm actually going to start with doing the back seat piece first, and then we'll move to the middle, and then we'll move to both fronts. So let me grab the rear seat piece, confirm that it fits, make sure all my holes are popped out, everything like that. Yep, good on that side. Good on this side. So perfect. So since it's already in position, I'm going to start on the passenger side here, removing the protective covering. So we'll remove 8-10 inches of it to kind of get it laid down here. Kind of get it lined up everywhere. There we go. So just start by pressing it down. Now I can continue removing. So now just gently kind of letting it fall into place. go. So now I can go ahead and continue removing some of this here. And now I'll move to the other side. Kind of get the rest of my paper off. Making sure we got adhesion. So now that that's down, we'll go ahead, grab our roller, get it rolled out. So now this is done and adhered. We can move on to the middle section and the front sections of the floor. So I'm going to start on the driver's side, get that section done, move on to the front floorboards, get that section done, then move over to the passenger side. So let's get that done. So now I have both my midsection and my front here. So we'll just get that slid up there just to make sure that there's nothing weird. There we go, perfect. So starting with this, pretty small, relatively simple. It's just a very small little piece that goes underneath the seat. So we can probably just grab the entire thing off. There we go. So and just get it in the general area. About there. There you go. Go ahead and get that down. I have my roller in the pocket, so just go ahead and roll that down. There we go. So now we can grab our front section out. Now this may be a little bit more difficult just because of how you kind of have to get it up under there. It may stick a little bit prematurely. So we'll start with just a little bit of it down. So I want to kind of fold it a little bit and just gently maneuver it into position. You want to make sure that where it lands, it's going to land where the correct holes are. So from there, just kind of get it into position. Kind of get that side, the front portion of it, all locked down. Then we can lift it up and remove the rest of our paper. And that there. So then kind of holding it up, making sure it doesn't stick too badly. Get it into its position. Get any of this excess underneath here. There we go. And just grab our roller, roll it out, and we're good with the driver's side. Now we can move over to the passenger side and get that all done. So now on the passenger side, I have both my middle panel and my front panel. Test fitting the front panel fits well. Middle panel here. There we go, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead, start with that one. So strip this down. Kind of get it into position here. I'm going to do something a little bit different here on this one. Actually going to start here at the bottom. Get this side peeled. This blade first. There we go. Fold it in. Get it tucked nice and neat under. So now let's begin on the passenger side. We'll get all of our carpet in, and then we'll move and get our kick panels all on. So let's start up front, then move to the rear. So go ahead and slide our carpet in. Making sure we get our seat cables out. Locking that in. Now, as far as the carpet in between the transmission or center console, you can just tuck it in. It just goes right behind. Make sure we get that pin plugged back in. And then we have one up high. Just plug that in. There we go. Now we can move to the rear. Grab our rear carpet. Get it slid underneath the center console first. Here we go. Get that locked in. Sometimes you can use a panel tool, kind of get under there and just get yourself adjusted. There we go. Biggest thing is you want to make sure all the holes are lined up and they are in position here, so we can pop over to the other side. All right, so in the driver's side, same as the passenger side, just get everything lined up, locked in. Get that carpet underneath the center console. So now that the back's in, I'll grab the front carpet for the driver's side. We'll get that in. So let's do that. just be cautious. Make sure you get it out of the way of your gas pedal and brake pedal. That all pushed in. So now carpet in between the center console. So getting that pushed in, and then finally making sure we get our harness out in between. Get our carpet laid down and lock back down. Now our carpet's back in, we can move it back over to the passenger side, get those kick panels on and resecured. So now we have our passenger side kick panel. Now make sure your door harness is on the outside. Then you'll just line it up, making sure our bolt can go back on, and then just kind of push it in. It will click back in. Grab our 10mm. Put that back on. Now if you want to go ahead and put your door back on, the door harness back on, go ahead. So go ahead and get that plugged back in, locked on, and put the loop back around. So now we just need to slide the cover back on. Just line that up and push it on. So now we can move on to our B and C pillar here. So first thing, we need to make sure we get it behind the seat belt. Pop that seat belt on through there. We can just kind of pull that front part off. Now we want to make sure we get everything lined up. Just kind of push it in. There we go. Seatbelt moves freely. So just make sure everything pops in correctly. Like that. And then just kind of bury the carpet behind there. And just keep pushing in till everything's attached. So now we have to replace our cover panel here. Looks like that fell out, so let's go ahead and put that back. There we go. Slide this up. And in. Then we can put our panel back over our seatbelt. And now that's all done. Now we can move over to the driver's side, get all that done, and then get our front seats and rear seat in. So same as the passenger side, making sure we're above, lining it up. There we go. Locking it in. Grab our 10mm bolt. Get that started there. There we go. Get that screwed in. get our door plugged back in and locked. And we'll get it hooked back on. And the last thing, getting this cover panel back on here. Okay. Get that on. We'll leave this a little bit loose for the rear piece. So slide in for the seat belt. Get it under. So make sure we're all lined up. Make sure everything's back in. That's back on. Go ahead and get our seatbelt cover back on. And then move around. And there we go. So now our carpet, our kick panel are back in. Next we can go ahead and get our front driver's seat in, and then move back over to the passenger side, get the passenger seat in, and then move on to the rear, get our rear seat in. Again, remember, it may be helpful to have somebody else help you with the rear seat. It's big, it's bulky, it's heavy, it's awkward, so just a thought to keep in mind. Get it set down, lean the back. We're going to want to get everything plugged in first. So remember, go up and around. Get our black plug plugged in and locked. Let's get our airbag plugged in. And then make sure we put everything back together. So there we go. So now let's just lean it down, get it set in, get our bolts started by hand. So just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead, slide the seat up, just get the rear bolt started. There we go. Now I can go ahead and get everything tightened down. Slide our seat forward, grab our two rear bolts. There we go. So now just put our headrest back in. And our driver's side is done. We can actually go ahead, move over to the passenger side. So again, just like the front door, go behind. We'll get the black plug plugged in and locked down. Get our airbag plugged in and locked. Let's get our Christmas tree back in. There we go. So now we can get it lined up to where it needs to be. Start our bolts by hand. And go ahead, just like the driver's side, get our rear bolt started. There we go. So let's go ahead and get those all tightened down now. Last thing to do, get our headrest back in here. Slide that back. Yep. So now both front seats are in, completely plugged in, bolted down. So now we're going to go ahead and get the rear seat in. For that, I'm going to slide both these front seats up just to give myself a little more room. And let's get that done now. All right, so you can tell some movie magic. The rear seat's in. Off camera, I had to have a couple of the guys help me kind of get it in here and get it set. But we're still going to show you how to bolt it all down and get it all squared away. So I have the 3 bolts just in loosely on the back side of the rear seat. So let's go ahead and lift this up and get our other bolts in here. Again, I always like to start bolts by hand so I don't strip any of them out. Let's go ahead and get these tightened up. So there's those 2. And then we can lower the feet down, get them into position, and get these 2 bolts in. And get these tightened down. There we go. So now we'll move over to the driver's side, get the 4 bolts into this seat, and we'll be just about done. Go ahead and get our 2 bolts in and started for the back. Now get our 2 feet where they should be. There we go. Get them tightened up. So now all we have left to do is to tighten up the 3 bolts in the rear. All right, let's get our last 3 bolts tightened down. Like I said, I had already started them just to kind of hold the seat in place, but we can fold our seat back up. So now that we've completed our Soundskin's installation on the floorboard of our Jeep, it's time for the somewhat tedious portion of the installation, and that's the door skins. So that is actually going to require us to remove the door panel and remove the interior portion of the door panel to get it on the inside of the exterior of the door panel. Now what that'll do is it'll actually block a lot of that road noise and tire noise from coming into the doors of your Jeep. So what I have out here is both the driver's front and the driver's rear portion of the kit ready to go. It's already prepped, have all my holes punched out, so we're ready with that. So some of the tools that differ from the installation of the floorboard kit and the door kit are going to be a T27 Torx, a T15 Torx, a pair of needle nose or regular pliers, and some sort of tape, whether that be duct tape or masking tape. Now that is to hold up the window because we'll actually be removing it off of the track. So we want to make sure it doesn't fall during our installation. So now that we've gone over everything we need to complete this job, I actually have the passenger rear door panel completely apart. Want to give you a kind of a preview of what it's going to look like when it's finished, and then I can also show you exactly what needs to be removed. So off camera, I took a little time and actually removed the passenger rear door panel to show you exactly what you're going to get into to install the door portion of the Soundskins kit. So like I said, you'll actually remove the plastic door panel, then you need to remove a bunch of bolts and some wire harnesses and stuff, as well as release the window. Now I have it held up with some duct tape, and that's done a great job so far. So this is what it'll look like once the installation is finished. You'll have your Soundskins on the interior side of your door panel. You'll be able to tap it, it'll give you a good dead thud. But let's now kind of show you what you need to remove to complete the process. So here, once everything is back in, our Soundskins is on, we need to realign everything here. So we actually had to remove the 3 bolts that hold in the door latch mechanism, as well as the plastic on the inside. So again, this is somewhat of a tedious process because we have 9 bolts that actually hold on the plastic panel, and then we have a couple of plugs that we need to have plugged in. We need to make sure that our door opens, our window goes up and down smoothly. So take your time. If you have a second person, it's great to have. So, but as far as getting everything then lined back up, we're just gonna, you know, kind of get it in there. Now you'll notice here that this extends beyond the bottom and this kind of extends beyond the top. So you kind of have to feed it up and down, or feed it down then up, and align everything. So we have 9 bolts that need to be removed so we can access the interior side of our door panel. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We have 2 plugs that need to be removed. This one will be for the window, so we can remove the bolt that's in there and lift our window up to keep it out of the way. And then this one here will just allow us to get a little extra room on this wiring harness. We'll also have to remove the 3 clips holding in the harness, as well as the power window motor. And yes, we actually removed the main plug coming from the Jeep. So now we have our Soundskins installed. It's actually time to start to reassemble the passenger rear door. Now the disassembly will be exactly the same for both passenger and driver's rear door. So I'm going to show you how to completely remove that driver's rear door. So first we need to line up this piece with the piece on the inside of the door that goes to the latch to the actual piece here. So, and we'll just line that up. Now it'll have a couple of little nubs that we just need to lock in and get connected. So then we can just gently kind of position our door panel back in. And then there is one nub on this side that will kind of allow that to kind of lock in. Next, we will get our door latch mechanism bolted back in. So we'll grab our 3 T27s and get all of those lined up by just kind of moving the panel into place. Now we'll just start with getting them just started, each one, making sure. So now I have all 3. We can go ahead and tighten them into position all the way. So we always just want to make sure that when we grab the door, we hear the mechanism moving. So now that that's done, we can actually go ahead, start putting all the bolts, all 9 bolts back in to hold our panel back in. So let's start all of our bolts by hand. Now there's 9 of them in total. Just get each one in, making sure we get a couple threads on there. We don't want to cross thread any of these bolts. So 3 left. So you may have to just kind of gently move this around to get everything done. So once all of our bolts are in, we can go ahead and get them tightened back up. Again, you can use an electric ratchet or a handheld. Either, it's up to you. Now that we have all 9 bolts attached, we can go ahead and take off our tape that's holding our window. Now you want to make sure you hold on to it, make sure it doesn't fall down. It shouldn't, but better be safe. So holding your window, just kind of getting it into place. take your bolt with the blue Loctite and just, again, start that by hand, making sure we get it threaded. So once it's in, go ahead and tighten that down. So don't go too hard on that. It is a window. So now we have our wiring harness. We'll just pop that right back into its holes. And there, like that. Now we can grab our power window motor, get that plugged back in, making sure we push down on the red tab to lock it in. So to continue on, we'll have our harness. We'll get our bolt back through the harness and get that started by hand. So we have that, and we can tighten that down. And we can go ahead and reattach our harness to the door and then plug that all back in. So now everything's tightened back up. Close up any of the plugs for the door. So here as well as here. And then we can actually grab our door panel and get that reattached. With our door panel, pretty easy to stick back on. The biggest thing that we have to remember is that the cable with the black goes on top. The cable with the white goes on the bottom. Now you'll know that because the white will actually push in, and again, I'll show you all that when we do the disassembly of the driver's rear door. So we'll go ahead and get our bottom one locked in and get that snapped in. Then we can go ahead and grab our top one, get that locked in. So now, again, you always just want to check, make sure you hear that mechanism moving, and then check the lock as well, make sure that that's moving. Now we have our door handle and our door lock. Now we want to make sure we line up the bottom of the door panel here to the ridge here and the one in the back. So we just kind of want to get that lined up, slid down. Now there are a couple of pins that we just want to make sure that we line up. So if you look in, you can just make sure that they're, lined up with the actual door itself. There we go. So now everything's kind of lined up. You can just give a little tap on the top just to make sure it's all the way down, and then go ahead and tap in. So once that's all down and in, we can actually look in. We can see that our bolt is good for our door handle. One for here, one for here, and one for down here. So there are 2 T27 bolts and then 2 T15 for the rear door. So we'll go ahead, start with our T27. Go ahead and get that started in the door handle and tighten down. So there's that one. Then we can put the one in underneath the actual door pull. Then we can switch over to our T15 and get those in there. And one at the very bottom here. Just make sure everything is on there nice and tight. And then finally, we have to put our cover plate back over the bolt in the door handle and just push that in. So last thing, we just want to make sure that we don't forget to plug in our harness for the rear door. So just go ahead, get that plugged back in. And then you can put your cover back on and push it shut. So now that our door panel and everything is back together, plugged back in, one very important thing to check. We want to make sure our window goes up and down smoothly, make sure it doesn't hit anything, nothing's kinked. So let's go ahead, kick the car on, and then either using the front window switch or the rear window switch, or if you have somebody helping you, they can always put it up. So let's go ahead and reach in. Nice and smooth. Go ahead and go down. Perfect. And all the way back up. So now we know our window works nice and smooth, just like it did prior to the installation. So now go ahead, you can clean your glass, or you can just move on to the next door. So the next one we're going to be doing is the passenger front door. And you can come back and do any cleaning you need to do once everything's done. So let's go ahead, get to the passenger front door, get the door panel off, get everything out, and we can do that installation. So we'll have two T27s underneath the door pull, one behind the door handle, and two T15s in the lower portion of the door. We will also have to remove the retainer for the wire harness here. That's going to be two more T27s. So first, let's start by getting out the cover panel here, grabbing your panel removal tool and just gently sliding it in behind and removing it. So then we'll go ahead and remove this T27 here. So now we got that one out. Go ahead and move to the two that are underneath the door pull here. And the second one here. So let's go ahead and remove these two bolts that hold on the wire harness for the door. There's one. And the second one. So now let's go ahead and grab our T15 and remove the two in the lower portion of the door panel. And now all of our bolts are out. Next thing we need to do is grab our panel removal tool and pop the clips that hold the door panel actually on to the door. So now with our panel popper in hand, we just want to go down the side and pop out any of our clips. Now this is it's going to sound like you're going to break it, but they are just very strong. Make sure we pop each one out. There we go. So once we have all our clips out, we can kind of pull our door panel out and just lift and wiggle straight up like that. All right, once we get our door panel off, we'll have one plug that needs to be removed, as well as two cables, one for the door handle, one for the door lock. So starting with the plug, slide your red clip back, push in and remove. And then we have our two cables. Just keep in mind, white will go on the bottom, black will go on the top. So to remove the black one, just pull out, twist it up to release. The white one actually goes through a hole. So squeeze it, pull it through that hole, and then remove it out of the actual door handle. You can go ahead, set the door panel aside, and we can start on what we need to remove next. So now we have our door panel off. We need to do some things with the window first. So we need to make sure everything stays plugged in. So first thing we want to do is go ahead and remove these two. We're going to go ahead, turn on the Jeep, and then we're going to lift and lower the window until we see the bolts that are here. So let's go ahead, get the Jeep turned on. So now let's go ahead, roll the window up till we see the two 10mm bolts. There we go. So now that we can see both our bolts that are holding our window, before we do anything else, it may be advantageous to take a picture of the door, noticing where all the bolts are. Remember that this bolt up top is held in by the T27 Torx on the door panel, so we want to make sure when we go to put the door panel back on that we don't put anything there. We also kind of want to take a look at how all of our wire is routed and where each thing plugs into, just so we have it in the same position when we're done. So with that being said, now we can go ahead and remove the two 10mm bolts that are holding our window into position. And there's our second. You'll want to keep these two together. You'll notice that they have blue Loctite on each of the bolts, and those are specifically for the window. So now we have that out, we can actually go ahead and lift our window up. So what you have to do is kind of reach into the hole and pull out, and that will release the window. Now, if you have aftermarket tint on your windows, just be careful, but you can actually just go ahead, slide the window all the way up into position. I already had a piece of tape ready, so we want to just kind of get that on there, nice and solid. Make sure that's not going to come down, so that's great. So now we can start by removing some of our wire harnesses and popping out all the clips. So we're going to go ahead, grab our panel popper. First thing I want to do is remove the plug from the window motor. So it's got one of those little red locks. Push out from the back and then just go ahead and release. So again, pushing out and then releasing the switch there. So now we can just kind of go along, get each of our plugs out by just getting in behind it and pulling out. So now all of those are done. Now we can go ahead and unplug this plug for up here and get that out of the way. So now we just need to go ahead and release the main plug out of the body of the car for the door itself. We already have our window done and out of the way, so we don't need electricity anywhere for here. So just like you were popping your door off, you can go ahead and just get out in the kick panel there. So now let's go ahead, once we've removed the cover, just go ahead, make sure it's unlocked, and then just gently lift up all the way to release the plug. And then we can go ahead and remove the holder off of the clip. And then we can kind of let that dangle here in front of us. So now we have our harness off the body of the actual Jeep. Let's go ahead and just kind of slightly turn that so that's out of the way. So now we have 8 10mm bolts around the outside. We're going to go ahead and remove those. That will semi-release this panel itself. We then will have 3 T27s in the latch mechanism that we need to remove so we can actually slide this out of our way to install our Soundskins. So let's go ahead and get these 10mm bolts out of the way. So there we go. Keep all of those together. Now we should be able to just kind of pop it out just a hair. We don't really want to do a whole lot more than that until we get our 3 T27s off the door latch mechanism. So let's go ahead, get those out, and then we'll be able to actually get this turned to about 90 degrees and get our Soundskins installed inside our door panel. So now we're going to get the 3 T27s out of the door latch mechanism. So Just gonna close it so you can get a little bit better picture of it. So they're here. Again, T27, and just remove. So now all our bolts are out. We have one last thing to do before we can actually kind of remove this off the door skin, and that is we'll have to reach in here and actually release those double pin holder that actually helps align the door latch. So let's go ahead, do that now. So the piece that we need to remove is right here. It does come off pretty easy. It's just kind of hard to get to. So you just kind of stick your panel tool in there and twist. There we go. So, and now that has released. So now we're ready to pull this off. Everything's disconnected. Now I found the easiest way is to lift it up and then just kind of slightly turn it and let it kind of hang there. If you have a second person, they can kind of hold it out for you. So it's going to look a little bit different how you may do it. So let's also, I don't know how this is going to sound on the camera, but let's just give it a little knock test before we put the Soundskins on. So that's before Soundskins. So, and I'll do the same thing after. But let's go ahead and grab our sheet that says passenger front door. So it'll look like this. It's number 5, passenger front door. Now this will actually go in like that with this cutout going around the door handle mechanism. So let's start off by peeling the top part of the protective paper back. Get a couple of inches there, so then we can grab our seat here and feed it into position here. Now what we need to be concerned about is making sure we don't hit any of the window track or anything like that, and also making sure we get it here where the door is. So we want to kind of line that door area up first, just gently kind of put it on there, and then once you're satisfied with how you have it, you can go ahead and give it a press, get that down. Then from there, we'll go ahead and remove the rest of the paper. So kind of pull it back up through. And then get that back underneath. Just kind of press down as you go. Just making sure it stays nice. And you should end up right at the very bottom of the door panel and be able to push it right in. So once you're on, go ahead and grab your roller if you have one, and just roll everything on. Just make sure it's nice and secured to the door. So let's just give it a push along the edges. There we go. So now let's go ahead and do the same thing we did before. Give it a little tap test. I don't know how much of that you can hear at home, but here in our studio, it makes a gigantic difference. So now we're done with applying our Soundskins on our door. We can actually go ahead, flip our cover panel back up, kind of get it lined back up like so, making sure we lock those two pins in. There we go. So now I am all locked back in. So from there we can either go ahead and put on our hinge, get that mounted, or we can start mounting these. I'm going to start with the hinge. So we're going to go ahead and grab our 3 T27 bolts that go into the side here. So we'll get this lined up. So there's the first one. Second, and we'll get the third one all tightened up. Now sometimes while you're doing this, that other piece here can fall out. Just locate it again and you can get it pressed back on relatively easily, just like that. So you'll notice, because the window guide is attached to this piece here, it doesn't move at all. It comes with everything. So we can go ahead and start hand tightening all of our bolts back in, just so this doesn't move. Remembering that we do not put one in this upper corner here. So we'll just get them all started by hand. Kind of go around a couple different spots, just get them just so it stays located. Now once we have them all in, we can go ahead and tighten them down. Now that these are all tight, we can go ahead and drop our window back down, making sure that we are using the 2 bolts with the blue Loctite. So let's go ahead, take the tape off, and gently slide the window down till we get right around where we need to be. So it should pretty much drop right in. So you may have to maneuver it just a little bit to get the bolts in. But again, always start the bolts by hand. So we got them both started. So let's go ahead and tighten them down. There we go. Now our window's nice and tight. So now we can go ahead and grab our harness, get that back into position. If you took a picture, you can go ahead and double check that now. Other than that, you can just go ahead and start plugging them all in. So there's that. We have this one here. Go like that. So let's make sure we plug in our gray connector here and plug in our window motor and press in on that. So now that's there. So now we're done. We can close those 2 up, close that all up, and go ahead and kind of get your factory door plug back in, plugged in, just so we can go ahead now and test the window, make sure it's functioning correctly before we put our door on. So we'll go ahead, hit that. Let's see here. Goes up. Goes down perfectly. So we'll go ahead and put that up for now. So from here, we're ready to put our door panel back on. So again, we have to remember we have a plug to plug in, as well as the door handle and the door lock cables to put back onto the actual door trim. So let's grab our door panel. Let's get those things connected. So get that connected. Push in that little red tab so it locks. White will go on the bottom. So we'll stick it into the latch, pull, and then push it in so it stays. The black will go on top. So get that in and then into its holder. So now we have our door panel ready to go. Always smart to check. So you can see my door lock switch is working. So we can hang our door. Now there's a piece of trim here as well as here. It'll go right on in there. So once you have your door panel rehung, you just want to make sure those pins are in the correct position. You can usually see them right through the door panel. And once you're in, you can just push them in, get them locked down. You know, sometimes give a little tap just to make sure they seat themselves correctly. So now the door panel is on and locked the whole way around. So now we can go ahead and grab our two T15s here. We'll get those down below, put them back in. So from there we can move to the strap holder, get that into position. Go ahead and get that tightened down. So now that we have our bottom screws all in and tightened down, we can go to our door handle and our armrest. So let's go ahead, start up here. So that's in. So now we have two down here to get in. Now the second one's in, nice and solid, no gaps anywhere, everything's pushed in. So lastly, we can go ahead and grab our door handle cover, snap that into place, and then finally go ahead and put our cover back on our lower kick panel. And now we're done with the passenger front door. We're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing on the driver's front door. So let's go ahead and begin disassembling the driver's door. Again, it's exactly the same as the passenger door. We're going to remove T27 out of the door handle, two T27s from underneath the armrest, two T15s from the bottom, and then the two T27s holding in the harness strap. So let's go ahead, pop this off, just grab in there and remove. So we'll go ahead and start with this one. And move on to the armrest. And the other one. So since we already have the T27, we'll go ahead and get this two out. And then the one on the bottom here. So now that's loose. Let's go ahead and switch over, grab our 2 on the bottom. That's a T15 again. So now we have all of our bolts out. We can go ahead and grab our panel removal tool. Now again, you just want to kind of get in behind, feel for that, feel for those plugs, and just pop them. And kind of work your way the rest of the way down. There we go. So now we got all of those out. We can just lift up on our door panel, kind of lift it up and out of the way. Same connector, so making sure that locking tab is back, pressing in and releasing. Plug popped off, get that back there. Now we have our door lock and our door hinge. Black one you can just pop out, feed out through. The white one, again, we want to pinch it to push it back through. So we just gently pinch it, pull it through the hole, and then out. So now our door panel is released. Actually left one of the pins in there. Let's pop that out. So now that's out. I'm gonna go ahead and get that placed back in our door. There we go. So now that our door panel's off, this is a great time to take a picture. Make sure you know where everything is, so you have that for when you reinstall it. But let's go ahead and get everything unplugged and all of our holders off the actual door. So start with this one here, and then we'll get the motor off. So press in, pull out. Now we'll release all of our clips holding everything. Start with this one, and I'm actually just gonna go ahead and like kind of turn that a little bit just so it's out of the way. So now we have everything unplugged. So next, pull these 2 cover plates off, fold those down. Now we'll have to turn on the vehicle. Again, lift the window up. So let's turn that on. So let's go ahead and lift our window up till we see both our 10mm bolts. So there we go, have them there. Now I can shut off the vehicle and unplug my window motor. So now I can grab my 10mm and remove both of these. So there's one, and there's 2. Again, these bolts will have blue Loctite on them, so keep those separate from these. So now our window is loose. We're going to go ahead, grab our tape, pull off a piece. Now we want to just kind of lightly push up on the release tabs and then just gently slide it up and out of the way. Grab our tape. Just make sure that window won't come down. So from there, we can now go ahead and remove the 8 10mm bolts from the black plastic piece. So now those are all removed. Still need to remove the 3 T27s holding in the door latch. So go ahead and grab those. And then last but not least, we'll kind of loosen it up here a little bit, and then we'll pop our plastic here to separate it. There we go. So as you can see, it looks exactly like the passenger side. This one's pretty clean, so I don't really need to wipe it down with anything. So I'll get that out of the way. We're gonna go ahead and release our door harness from the kick panel. So just pull on your kick panel, and then pop that up to release that, and unhook the safety catch. And go ahead and grab my driver's side Soundskins and get it installed. So I've got the piece for the driver's front door panel. It's labeled number 1. So just like the passenger side, go ahead and take off the paper covering for the top couple of inches, 5 or 6 inches. So we'll kind of get it into position here. Get it laid down. So again, we want to be careful on making sure that we are not blocking anything with the windows, and we get it in correctly behind the door latch. So just takes a little bit of maneuvering. There we go. So once we're satisfied with where it is, kind of get it stuck on there. Oh, this is a little high here. There we go. So we can kind of get that top part stuck. Then we can pull this back out and remove the rest of the paper. And then we can kind of get this back in. Everything's behind. Go ahead and get it all pressed in. Again, it should end up just right at the very, very bottom of the door. So now we got it in. We'll grab our roller. Just roll it all out as best as possible. There we go. So now let's just see, nice and quiet. So now we can actually go ahead, as long as we're happy with how it's secured to the door, we can go ahead and grab our cover, kind of get it all back lined up. Making sure nothing's behind there, like that. There we go. All right, so now everything's lined back up. Let's go ahead and just throw a couple of the bolts in just to hold it. There we go. So now I want to get on the 3 bolts that hold the latch. So I'll grab those 3 bolts and my T27 here. Get those all lined up. Kind of get them in there. So my door latch is lined up and secured. I have some of my bolts in here. We'll go ahead and finish getting those bolts in. Just remembering, nothing goes here until the door panel goes back on. Now we can go ahead and tighten all those back up. Now those are all done. Now we can gently take off the tape holding our window and slide our window back into position. Again, it should fall pretty darn close. There we go. So now we'll find our 2 bolts with the blue Loctite. Just get them started by hand. Go ahead and tighten those up. So we can close up the covers on those. Let's go ahead and get everything plugged back in so we can test our window. There and there. So let's go ahead and get our window motor plugged in, making sure we put the lock back on. Let's go ahead and get our gray plug plugged back in so we can test our window. We're going to go ahead and plug in our main harness. Perfect. So let's turn on our Jeep and try our window up. Perfect. So now that that's done, we can go ahead and grab our door panel, get our door lock and mirror switch plugged back in, as well as our door handle and our door lock. So again, starting with the plug, just get that plugged in, making sure that we push down the red tab to lock it into place. Next, we'll have our white connector, which goes on the bottom. Once it's in, stretch it through and then push it in. It'll lock in automatically. And then go ahead and grab your black handle and get that in. So now everything's connected. You can check, make sure the door locks are working, make sure the mirror's working. So now time to hang the door. So again, just like the passenger side. There is a channel here, and it fits directly into there. So we just kind of want to get it on there, and then just double check your pins, making sure that they are in the position that they are supposed to be, and you'll know once they are because it'll sit really close to the door. So then from there you can just kind of hit them in, make sure they stay. So now we can go back, get all of our bolts and screws put back in. So I'm going to start with the T27 in the door handle and underneath the armrest. So there's that one. Get our armrest bolts in. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and get these two in, as well as the two T15s. Grab my bolts, start them both by hand. There we go. Then switch out to my T15 for the two bottoms. Now our door panel's back together. Only other thing we have to do, put our kick panel cover back on and clean our window. So with that, we can move on to the driver's rear door and complete the install. So now moving on to the driver's rear door. Same basic operation. We'll have one here, one down here, and then two of the T15s here. So let's go ahead and pop off the cover. Get that removed. Grab our T27. Now in our door handle or our armrest, switch over to our T15. And then one right here. So now we have our bolts out of there. Now we need to release the actual door panel. Just like the passenger door and the driver's door, you just kind of have to find the spot where the clips are, pop them out. Once you get your door panel out, just wiggle it up and lift out so we can release our door lock switch. We'll grab our pair of pliers, pinch in to release, allow it to come through that hole, and then pull out. Now there are no plugs or anything on the back side of this door, so we don't have to worry about that. First thing we're going to do is pop this out, get our window right to where we need to get it to to undo the 10mm bolt. So let's do that first. Go ahead and turn the Jeep on. So let's hit it. There we go, perfect. I'm there, so now I can shut it off. So even though it's hard to see on film, what we're trying to do is get the bolt for our window to line up in that hole so we can remove it just a little bit easier. So from there, we're gonna go ahead, remove that bolt. So again, bolt with blue Loctite is for the window. So now from here, we can remove our B-pillar cover, slide the hanger off, and just go ahead and unplug the harness. We're going to go ahead and remove all the holders as well as the window motor. So just like the rest of them, push that red tab in and just remove. Now for these, very much the same as the front doors. Just kind of got to get under them, get them out. So there we go, we got those out now. So now we have one 10mm bolt holding the harness on. So let's get that out. Now that will allow our harness to just kind of droop. So now we can get all the rest of the bolts out of this piece. Again, remembering when we could put it back in, not to put one in there. So let's get these out. So now we have our bolts out. Let's get our window up and out of the way. So we'll grab a piece of tape. Just push in, slide it up. There we go. So now that's up and out of our way. Grab our T27. We're going to remove the 3 bolts on the end for the latch. And lastly, before we can move this out, we're just going to kind of loosen it up, get it unstuck, and then we'll need to release the inner side here. There we go. Now we should be able to get it out. There we go. And now we can slide it out. Now you can see that there's a big brace in here. The rear door is actually 3 pieces. So again, looks pretty good in here, pretty clean. No oil, no dust, no dirt. So we can start off with our first piece here. So you can see this says driver's rear door panel with a number 2. So this piece will go right in here and around the door handle like such. So just like that, and then in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and get the whole thing off, and then get this in here. slid into position here. And again, just making sure we don't get it stuck on the door panel. The next one says driver's rear door number 4. So this piece will actually go down here and just like that. So same thing as the top piece. Let's go ahead and remove the paper. Kind of get it into position here. There we go. So there's that. So now we have one last piece that will say driver's rear door panel number 3. So this piece will actually go right here, and there'll be 2 bolts that are actually holding there. That's what those 2 cutouts are for, and it'll go just on this panel here. So let's again pull off the protective paper. And we'll go ahead and get this into position here. There we go. Just get it all pressed in. So now once everything's on, we can grab our roller and just get it all rolled out. There we go. So now we get our cover back into place. Let's go ahead and get some of those screws in there. Remembering not to put a screw in this one. And that we should have one left over to hold our harness here. So I have my one left over for here. So let's go ahead and get these all tightened down. So now we have everything tightened down. Let's go ahead and get our harness back into position. And let's get our motor plugged back in. So now we can grab that other one just in and through. Go ahead and get that tightened down. And let's get her plugged back in so we can test our window once we do that. There we go. So now that's back on. So now we can actually take the tape off our window. Just get it gently dropped into position here. There we go. Right on the money. So that's started. Get that tightened down. So let's cover that back up. Let's go ahead and turn the car on. Just make sure that window works. So now everything's back together. We know our window works. Now we just have to put our door panel back on. making sure we connect both our door lock and our door handle. So again, the back, nothing else to plug in except for those two. So let's start out with the door handle, which is the white one. Pull it back and then push it through. There we go. And then now the door lock. There we go. So you can always just double check it. If you want to feel really safe, go ahead, hit the lock switch on the front doors. So we're good. So now, again, just like all the other doors, you just want to get it in this track and then back here to hang it. So once you hang your door panel, just to give a little tap down and then look and make sure those pins are located exactly where they're supposed to go. And then just give a push in. There we go. So now the door panel is back on. We can go ahead and grab our T27. We'll start with the one in the door handle here. Since I'm right here, just go ahead and throw that cover back on, pushing it in. So we'll move to underneath the armrest. Now the two T15s, one in the bottom here, and then one right here. And then that would complete the driver's rear door. So all that's really left is to clean your windows. Again, make sure everything's good. Try all your door locks, try all your windows. Just make sure any settings that may have been lost by unplugging anything are still there. So since we gave you that little sneak peek in the very beginning of this portion of the video, we're not going to actually show how to, disassemble and reassemble the rear passenger door. Just know it's exactly the same as the driver's rear door, just reversed. So all the screws and bolts are all in the exact same place, and you're going to take it all apart. So with that being said, wanted to do a little test. And again, I don't know how it's going to sound from a video standpoint or an audio standpoint, but I just want to show you a little bit of the difference of how the different parts of the metal sounds now. So we'll start back here where there's no sound deadening on this portion, but it is down lower behind our factory sub. So we kind of hear that. And then we go to the door where it is sound deadening. You hear a definite difference in the sound there. And then we'll just hit here. And then here. And then one last, we'll just do the fender. So you hear a huge difference in the amount of vibration of the metal of the door. So let's just do a little open close quick. So definitely quieter, sounds more solid of a door. It's got a 3-layer material on it that has a butyl rubber, an aluminum, and then a foam. So it's going to actually help hold that metal together and stop all those rattles and all that ringing when you close your door. So I'm super stoked that I've completed the complete Soundskins kit in our Jeep JL. I can't wait to get this thing on the road and hear the sound difference between the old Jeep and now the new Jeep. So if you have any questions or are looking to purchase any of these Soundskins kits, please visit us at bantamoverland.com. And as always, guys, have a blast out there.